Hi guys, welcome to In Her Power podcast with me, Christina.
Me, Meredith.
And Nuna.
We are three coaches who talk all things personal development, spirituality, and womanhood.
Yeah. Today we want to talk about personal boundaries, holding space for friends, and the kind of blurred lines between that and how that can kind of manifest. So yeah, I think we should start off by saying... I think we should start off by talking about our own boundaries with each other. So how have you found like putting boundaries with you and I? Because we've definitely had an interesting relationship around it.
I think when I first met you, it's like when you meet any new friend, you just kind of like, I feel like there's this like, not need, but you feel like you're too scared to say something because you're scared to lose them. Or you don't know the person, so obviously you don't know what they're like, you don't know if they're going to take what you say wrong. And I think, you know, setting boundaries should be such a normal thing, and I feel like not enough people know how to set boundaries. That's why some people may take offense to it, because they don't know that actually it's because that person is like
Protecting themselves.
But not enough people know that, so that's why so many people go in defense mode and take things personally and get defensive. So I felt like I probably didn't set boundaries with you, and probably vice versa. I don't remember you like being so the way we are now, but I think it's because I feel safe with you, and I know that if I say something you're going to completely understand, because you're on your own self-development journey and I'm on mine, and we both just get it. But now, because I know that you won't take like offense, even though you shouldn't take, you know, setting boundaries, you shouldn't be offended by that, and vice versa, like I always try my best to understand when you do set your boundaries, even though there's a part of me that's like, she hates me. Like, I'm annoying her, she doesn't want to be my friend anymore.
Well, it's natural, isn't it? It's like you like, I think until you really nail it, you take absolutely everything personally. And so when someone sets a boundary with you, when you first kind of maybe introduced to boundaries as a whole, because that's definitely, our relationship has moved through that, gone from like young women to sort of not older women, but women who are more aware of themselves and able to set boundaries. And I think when someone initially approaches you with a boundary and says, look, I just need this space, or I need you to not do that, or I need to be able to like check in with myself before I immediately hold space for you. I think immediately, if you're not used to that, you take offense, you take it personally, or like that person doesn't love me, or like, do you know what I mean? And I think it's been such a... One of the quotes that I really love is the one that says, the people that won't respect your boundary, or the people that will respect your boundaries, are the ones that hold boundaries themselves.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
The ones that don't
exactly
have boundaries.
Yep.
So they just assume that you're willing to hold space for them, or to just like immediately be available for them at all times, because they don't have.
I don't think I've ever done that.
I don't have boundaries.
I have done that.
I really don't. Like, I think part of my like people pleasing like side of me is that I don't want boundaries. Do you know what I mean?
Really?
It's like I want to be available all the time at people's service, because that makes me feel good. It makes me feel like needed, wanted. And I was gonna say it ties in with self-worth, I think, because if someone puts a boundary up towards you and you take it personally, it's normally a self-worth thing. I think.
Because you're, especially in the people-pleasing world, you're very accustomed to feeling wanted by that person. So I think in our relationship, I got a lot of validation and worthiness from you needing me. So that's why for a long time I didn't set any boundaries, because I was like, if she needs me, she's not going to leave. It was my abandonment wound coming through. And then once I'd kind of moved through that, I was like, okay, I love this girl and I never want to lose her, but in order for my sanity and my mental health, I need to... Whoa! Don't take it back to me! I need to... That was the same for everybody, like, around me. It was like, in order for me to be able to respect myself, I need to say when I can't hold space, when I can't be available, when I need some alone time, when I need some quiet time, like... And respecting myself first has meant that I've got a closer relationship with myself. I've got a better relationship with you. There's no resentment. There's no bitterness. Because ultimately, if you're constantly holding space for someone, like...
You just get tired of it.
You get tired.
Like, it drains your energy.
Completely. And I was feeling that. I was feeling so... Obviously, still don't want to say. I was feeling drained. Like, but I was doing it with all the relationships in my life. And, like... Putting that boundary in place was really hard, but extremely rewarding because I was like, I come first.
I feel like I really resonate with Luna, with the not setting boundaries and being a people pleaser. I feel like I still am to a certain extent. I feel so guilty if I say I can't hold space because I have this thing in me where I'm like, this person needs someone right now. How could I possibly like not be there for them? And I have this thing like, if I'm going through something or I'm feeling tired, like very rarely will I literally be like, oh, I can't be bothered to hold space for this person. Very rarely. But most of the time, it's like I forget about what's going on in my mind and my life and I'm like 100% focused on that person. So I resonate with that a lot.
I think it's easier by text because if someone is messaging you and they need your help and you're not able to hold space for them, you can just like not reply until you are. But like obviously if someone comes to you in person and is like, I'm going through this, I feel like that's definitely, I wouldn't be able to say no.
I mean, even you yesterday, like how many people were messaging you on WhatsApp and you were like, I'm just like so overwhelmed right now.
I think that's a big issue and it's like part of the reason why I'm so drained today. It's like on top of my work stuff, I have a million relationships to keep afloat that aren't here in Bali right now. And it's partly like people pleasing and wanting the relationships to flourish, but it's also an obsession with getting my notifications like what's it called, like
OCD.
It's an OCD thing. Like if I have notifications, I need to get rid of them straight away, and then it just takes over my life. I feel like I was literally saying this to Chris yesterday. I was like, 2 or 3 hours of my day are spent replying to people, and I can't just not reply. I can't just never reply. So in my head, I'm like, well, I might as well do it now. Otherwise, it's just going to build up.
I think that's where coming like into the space of like being a coach is, this is why I wanted to talk about this, because like when you're maybe not working as a coach, holding space for people is just in a friendship sense, and building relationships and maintaining relationships is just purely friends. But when it's like you're a coach, and I think all of us can relate to this, but like you're constantly learning and growing about new stuff, and it means that you're applying it to yourself and you're also mindful of it in your relationship. So if someone in my close circle comes to me with something and I feel I've got something to add, I automatically go into coach. And it's like I have really tried to step back in that sense and be like, right, when do I need to be a friend? When do I need to be a coach? What does this person need? Do they even want me to offer advice? Because maybe they don't.
That's the thing. That's the one thing I've realised recently is asking someone, what do you need from me? Do you need advice or do you want me to hold space? And I find that with me and you, sometimes you go to give me advice and I don't know, I just feel like sometimes maybe you don't want to, but you do, even though like you would tell me if you don't. It's just a me thing. Like sometimes I'm like, oh god, I'm a burden. That's obviously like a me thing, but sometimes I genuinely do like need just someone to hold space for me. So I'll be like, all I need is just for someone to listen to me. Like you don't have to talk. Like
I remember once in the group chat I was saying something about, I can't even remember now, but I was venting. And I remember you messaged back saying, sorry babe, I don't have capacity for this right now. And like, I don't think I'd ever had that. I'd never received a message like that. But to be honest, all I needed was to get those words out. I actually wasn't looking for any advice really. But sometimes you don't even realise that. Like, I think the natural thing is to get advice, but sometimes you don't even need it. You just need to get your words out.
I think, yeah, it's an interesting one. It's like, at that point when I sent that message, I was like, I can't even respond in a friend way, in a coach way. I just had absolutely nothing. Like, that was a really busy time, and I didn't want to abandon myself and come back to the message and try and help, or even just hold space. I really had to be like, I love you, but I can't even like read that at the moment. I'm so sorry you're going through something. And I think that's where the blurred lines are. It's like checking in with yourself before you have a conversation, then maybe building relationships and having relationships where you say, babe, is it okay if I vent? Or babe, is it okay if you hold space for me? Or babe, would you offer me some advice on this? Like, can I ask for your help? And it's like, that's where the kind of critical thinking and the boundaries come in place, where it's like, I am always going to be here for both of you when I have the capacity, and I know the same is like reciprocated. But sometimes I, like right now, for example, I am so like low on energy, and I think even the energetic situation where one of you is going through something and you want to vent, I'm just like, I just physically can't. And I love you so much, it doesn't take away my love at all.
I feel like you're very in tune with yourself. And I feel like I've only cultivated that within the last maybe the last 6 months. I've started like coming, since I've done work with Raki, like since I've done somatics, and I've like checked in with my body and seen what I want. And I think also that goes, I've really been embodying that recently as well, since I've been in Bali, since I've even been in this house, is just going with the flow and being more in my feminine rather than my masculine. I don't know where I was going with that. But like, do you know what I mean? Like,
it is. It's a thing of like
awareness.
It's deep awareness.
Intuition.
Not just, awareness. It's like aware, like literally checking in with your body. Like, how is my body? I think for me, I definitely know that I'm going to be moving into more somatics and energy work in the future, because I feel everything. Like on a bodily level, if someone is feeling, I can feel you right now. Like, and I think if someone is high vibration or low vibration, I can immediately feel it. And it's like, even before words come out their mouth, I know what's going on in terms of just energy level. And I think before I saw that as a superpower, I saw it as just a burden, and I was like, for fuck's sake, why do I always pick up on everyone's energy? Like, this is so annoying. I wish I could just get rid of it. I don't know whether it is empath, because like empath is like, it's a big trigger word on Instagram at the moment about how...
No, really?
Of course, it's like if you have an unpredictable parent and they switch moods like every now and again, and they like could flip on you at any moment, you are hyper aware of what's going on.
I get it, but since I done work in like human design and I done a lot of work with B, I realised that I think it's my solar plexus that's an open centre. This is a bit like woo-woo, I don't know if anyone believes in that, but I know, but I really believe in human design, and my solar plexus is open, which means that I receive people's energy and then I amplify it. So I get what you mean, like it can come from like childhood experiences and trauma, but also I think it's more of a bodily thing as well, and an energetic, and each center represents something different, and my solar plexus is literally open, so that means I literally feel other people's emotions, and I also amplify them.
And I think it's also like that thing of like where your experiences and your conditioning and everything and how you learn from that also kind of finely tunes, if you're in touch with it, who you are as a person and what gifts you have to give. So like, okay, maybe having an unpredictable parent meant that you were hyper aware. This hyper awareness can now be finely tuned for me as a coach to be able to tune in with my clients and be like, how, before they even speak, where are they at? Like, and that means I'm hyper aware, and it does work as a superpower, because it's like I don't need to talk to them before I know what's going on, you know?
Can I ask you both a question? With your clients, do you feel like do you energetically prepare for it?
100%.
Like 5 minutes of like meditation.
Yeah.
Because
Fair.
there's so much going on in my head. I couldn't possibly like be present for someone
Yeah.
if I don't do like a few minutes at least.
And then afterwards as well, my big thing is I look like
Trauma
an
shake.
absolute freak. But I'll finish the call and immediately just like stand up and convulse my body until I feel like I've shaken all the energy
I
off.
need to do that.
Because
oh my god,
you're taking on so much, and that's why ultimately coaches charge a price that they charge, because you're working with someone so intensely about trauma, about reprogramming, about all these really heavy topics. You're taking it all on.
Yeah, and the thing is I come out of my sessions like fucking exhausted.
Really?
Yeah, they really take it out of me. Like, I feel like 3 people in one day is enough.
3 people in one day.
Yeah, like, yeah, but that's when I literally fall onto the bed and I'm like, I can't.
I could never do 3 sessions
But
in one day.
Alicia, our coach, she does like back to back, like all day. I don't
But
know how
she's
she
a
does
business
it.
coach, that's different, you know?
Yeah.
When you're working with heavy topics like, well, I don't know,
Yeah,
food
I
and binge
guess.
eating, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of emotion. When it's emotional,
True.
when it's strategy, it's like, this is how we do this. When it's emotional, it's like, I feel this.
Well, this is, I think, one of the reasons why I'm trying to do less one-to-one in my nutrition and more one-to-one in business, because they just drain me. And it's not in a way that I don't enjoy them, because I love helping people through something that I've been through before and giving them that guidance, but it's just a lot.
I also wonder if, like, there are certain things that might help in terms of, like, I know for certain, since I started doing somatics, the one thing that I'm in tune with is my cycle. Like, I will not, and I'm going to block this out every single month, I will not do any coaching sessions on the day before or after my period. Like, at least 4 days of absolutely no coaching and a lot of rest.
I totally stand by that.
So I think for me it's the week before, because I'm on the week before my period right now.
Me too.
And I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I'm fucking dead.
course you are.
Yeah.
Of course you are.
And also when basically the month, so if you don't honour your period and you don't take time to rest on your first day of your bleed and a couple days later, then that means, and if you're doing stuff and you're constantly like pushing yourself, that means when you're in your ovulatory phase, then you don't have the energy that you would expect to have, because you didn't recharge your batteries in your during your bleed.
Which is mad, because last month was the first month that I actually completely switched off on the 4 days around my period. 4 to 5 days. I did nothing. Like, I made sure I had a lot of alone time. For me, being in a quiet space is actually really what helps me recharge. And I honoured every single part of it. I even had the urge to ignore it as well. I was like, right, I'm going to go to Mai Tai, and then I checked in with my body, and my body went, no.
Mai Tai
fucking
on your
way.
period?
I know.
Oh, you're crazy.
And I checked in my body, and my body just like kind of, I could feel it like this, and it looked up at me and went, no. So then I just honoured it, did a bit of yoga, and just went back to bed and just like tapped away on my laptop a little bit. And this month, the ovulation phase, I was fucking superwoman. I've like, for 2 weeks, I've been mad at it. Now I've come into more PMT, and I'm like...
But it's about honouring that as well, and like being like, okay, I feel like this, what do I need, and not pushing it away, and accepting that that's just, because I don't know how many times I say this a day, but a man's hormonal cycle lasts for 24 hours, a woman is 28 days. 28 days. So like, we need completely different things. We're completely different to men. Like, men can, like, that's why they just don't really fluctuate in mood.
That's also why like the divine masculine is so much better at consistency, discipline, all of those like really amazing things. And that's why women need to work in a much more cyclical nature. Like, we are in certain phases more creative, we are more present, we're more like nurturing, intuitive, like, and then there are parts of our phases where we are more like
masculine.
go discipline, but we just need to honor that and set in, and that also comes into holding space for friends and boundaries, and also holding space for clients. It's like, where am I at? Can I bring that to a coaching session? That was something that Raki taught me, was like, if you're processing something really deep, but you feel like you can still function, you can bring it to the coaching session, and it might be that that person needs that level of deepness for that particular session. You have a fantastic session with them because you connect on such a level and you are so present. Like, you don't necessarily always have to go and like cancel one-to-ones when you're feeling stuff. You can
That's
sometimes
really
use
interesting.
it. It's so powerful, and I've definitely utilised it.
I think everything you're saying is so interesting, and I think it's great to know all that, but it's nothing unless you check in with yourself. And I think that's where I fall back on, is like what you guys have said. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I do know that. I've read that in a book, by the way, called Period Power, which is fucking unreal. If anyone wants to read it, it's amazing.
I'm gonna read that.
I know all this stuff, but what I'm failing to do is check in with myself regularly and ask myself these questions. So I think that's a really key part of this whole story that a lot of people maybe miss out on.
That's the thing, that I feel like I preach to people, like, just listen to your body and do what you're doing, and then I'm not doing the same thing. And I'm like, but I know this. And then when I started putting it into practice, I was like, wow.
I got great advice.
Wow, I'm sick.
I think that's normal though. Like, for me with my clients, one of the main things that we look at when someone binge eats is how hungry they are during the day. And I think even as an intuitive eater, it's really easy to ignore your hunger signals, especially if you're like a busy woman, a working woman, a mom. Like, you're not checking in with yourself, so you're not recognizing those signals. So even coaches, nutritionists, whoever, like, we can all fall into that trap of just not holding space for ourselves. That makes sense.
No, I completely agree, and I think it's so funny that you are fantastic with your relationship with food in terms of being intuitive, but when it comes to your work, you're so used to abandoning yourself and like putting other people first. And it's like, how you do one thing in terms of your relationships with people is how you do everything. If you've got friendships where you self-abandon and like you put their needs first because you want to feel valid, you'll do the same in work, like every single time, because it's a pattern that you're kind of living in until you deal with the fact that you don't feel valid unless someone wants you or your work needs you, you know?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to this word selfish that we're all scared of feeling. Like,
100%.
I think, well, me personally, I was always the selfish one in the family. Like, that was like my label. Like, my family thought I was selfish because I don't know, I don't even know why, but maybe the way I came across in decisions, or maybe it was part of my ADHD and I wasn't paying attention to things or whatever. But I think it's definitely had an effect on, like, I don't want to come across selfish to people.
And it's a woman thing as well.
Yeah.
Because we're quite, like, we are expected in kind of old society to be the selfless one, the one that gives to the children, gives to the family.
Give. But what do we give ourselves? Exactly. See, you say that about selfishness. For me, it's like, I don't want to come across as like I'm talking about myself. But really, people want to hear. People love a story, like, and that's one thing that my coach told me, was that my human design coach, she said, my power is my throat chakra. And talking through your ego, which isn't necessarily like ego has such a bad connotation, but it's not necessarily me. When it comes to work, people resonate with your story, and I'm like, that's my biggest fear, is like talking about myself and people getting bored of me and not wanting to hear about me, because do you know what I mean? So I get what you mean.
And bringing it back to the selfish thing, something one of you said has just reminded me. So my sister and my mum are known as being selfless, which is like praised.
Right,
exactly, it's praised.
But they also have a lot of difficulties because they're so selfless.
Yeah.
And my mum actually bought my sister a book, and it was like how to stop putting people before you. And like my sister sometimes struggles with like expressing her emotions because she's, I don't know, learnt somewhere that she needs to deal with them herself and look after everyone else. Do you know what I mean? So
Sounds very familiar.
yeah, so I think it's society praises being selfless and demonizes selfishness, and that's why a lot of us feel like we shouldn't prioritize ourselves.
Yeah.
Even in spirituality, like what do you like in Buddhism and like I personally agree with it to an extent, but they say like I can't explain it. I guess it's mostly monks, but people have taken that and brought it into their own lives, but just giving and like detaching from ego and just being this vessel of just like
100%.
do you know what I mean? And I'm like,
100%
I don't know what's right or wrong, because I really agree with like Buddhist teachings, but also like how could I possibly detach from ego? I'm human. Do you know what I mean? Like I have my needs as well, and I don't necessarily want to be a monk. So
but then it comes back to this analogy that everyone uses, the cup, and how you can't give if your cup is not full.
Yeah.
And
yes,
I see this
that.
all the time with like especially mothers who and people who are in, I mean, I'm speaking this for myself here, but if you have a business or you have a job or whatever, how can you perform at your best if you're not looking after yourself first?
Exactly.
And I need to preach this to myself 100%, but yeah.
I also love the analogy I heard recently. I cannot remember where, but in terms of the coach world, you are your first client.
Yes.
Like,
I was your first client.
For a while you were my first client, and now I'm my first client. You're my second client.
Yeah.
Ongoing, probably for life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a humongous thing. I think we learn so much. It's such a heavy, I don't even know, it's such a heavy culture to be selfless and to not put your own needs first, in people pleasing, in motherhood, in femininity, in masculinity as well. Like I do believe that a lot of the toxic masculinity believes that like all they need to do is give, and maybe we've supported that narrative for a long time in ways that we're not conscious of. And I think that is changing towards everybody needs to look after themselves first, and then, and it's all that thing of like the whole world would be a better place if everybody just loved themselves.
Do you know what's crazy? The more I've gained a few like male friends since being in Bali, right? And when I've been speaking to them, one thing that's crazy, I've just sat there and heard them speak, because we speak about girls and guys, and like kind of like they'll tell me what guys like and I'll tell them what girls like and one thing I took from it is that, wow, you actually have a heart, you actually have emotions. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like sometimes I find it easier to be like kind of playfully mean to guys, but like in like a jokey way, because I'm like, oh, they can take it, but really like they'll come back to me and be like, I still thought about what you said, and I'm like, oh, I was joking, like I didn't realise you actually took that to heart, because I just have this idea that they're all like, don't care, don't take anything. I can't explain it, it's crazy.
I think, to be fair, we speak for the minority here in terms of Bali, in terms of men, and like men
I was
being...
going to say that.
Really? Okay, well, this is lost.
But I think this is where it is going. I think this is where it's heading. It's like men are becoming more and more comfortable opening up about their...
I think the men here are more self-aware and more emotionally developed.